Hello, this is Vakar Alisha. I am a doctoral researcher at the Center for Applied Language Studies, University of Jyväskylä, Finland. In addition to that, I am also working as a lecturer in English at Mehran University of Engineering and Technology, Jamshedpur, Pakistan. In today's session, I will be talking about writing results and discussion part in academic articles. And that may actually be helpful to those who are writing dissertations or thesis at their master's level or at their PhD studies as well. So first of all, one should note that in some of the articles you will always find that results and discussion are actually merged together. They are written as one section, while in majority of the articles you will see that results are written separately while discussion part comes separately. So in that case, we will try to see what comes under result session and what comes under discussion part. And even though they are mixed together, you can apply the same moves, same thoughts to that particular idea when you are mixing both sections. So let's see how this works. Basically, when you talk about result section, you should note that the results are actually very neutral part. They are neutral section in your studies because in results you are only trying to present the data. So what data you have found? The data means that the findings overall that may be collected from that have been generated from your particular tools. For example, maybe the survey you have used, or the interviews or observation, or you have done ethnographic study. So you simply try to present the data, what you have actually found from a certain study, from a certain process that you have gone through. So in this section, make sure that you do not involve yourself into that. By involving, I mean you do not try to discuss the results in the light of previous studies. Okay, what other people have done and what are their findings, and you are trying to compare those findings with your data. It doesn't actually take place in the results part. In results part, you simply try to show the readers what you have found. For example, you can say that in our study we found that. Now what you have found, you can just summarize those particular findings. So you don't have to refer to any kind of previous studies, or you don't have to interpret your findings in the light of a certain theoretical framework, because interpretation of data in the light of theoretical frameworks are trying to compare your findings with other studies that may always be included in the discussion part, not in the results part. So it's a very neutral section where you are presenting your data. And there's one important point here that, for example, sometime in the results part, what happens that the students try to repeat the information. For example, you always in quantitative studies, for example, you always try to bring the figures and tables. Okay, and there is already so much information which is given in the tables and figures, and in the text again, what people do, they simply try to repeat that percentage, frequency, mean, or whatever results are there in the numbers. They are simply trying to repeat it the same. So make sure that your results section should not repeat the data in the text which is already given in the figure. So that's very tricky and technical part. So we always try to avoid the repetition. So you just give something in the figures that is not in the text actually. So for that, I would always recommend that you need to read some of the very good articles which are published in reputed journals to see how result sections are actually written, and how data in the table form or data in the figure form, how it is presented and how it is different from the data which is given in the text. So you need to compare two things, text and table versus figures. And if you're writing the data from the data in the qualitative study, then again, when you are trying to present the data, then you might need to quote some extracts from the data. So you can always put some extracts, and then certainly the codification, the codes that you have used for the participants, you can always mention that. Or even in when it comes to the presentation of interview data, there are different ways for doing that. For example, in some of the studies, you will see that some tables are drawn where we start making themes and sub themes, and then some sample responses are given there. While in other studies, you will see that the researchers in academic article, they don't draw this kind of very long table. Drawing a table may be preferred in the dissertations and thesis, but when it comes to academic articles, you can rely on the extracts, what you think they are very important to be given in the result section, and then you can just describe, you can just discuss it in your own language. Means you don't have to actually interpret it, you don't have to compare the results, but you just try to summarize the findings and then support it with the help of some extracts. The same may be true for other tools like observation and maybe if it is action research, there are some tests which have been conducted, reading text or what. So whatever you have found, you can just mention that. So this is really tricky. I would say it's not that much easy. For that, you really need to practice and you really need to read as many articles as possible to just compare how these result sections are actually written by different authors. Go for both qualitative studies and then the quantitative studies as well. Apart from it, when we talk about discussion section, if it is separately written, then what you have to do, you have to keep in mind that what does discussion actually mean. So discussion part actually relates to what do your results mean and why should anyone care about it. So okay, you have found some, you have come up with some data, you have got some results, but now in discussion part, you will actually inform the readers why should people care about it. Okay, what do your results actually mean now? So you just have to come up with a kind of interpretation of your data to tell the readers that you have done a study and you have found these and these results, and why should we care about it. So what can we do now? So that's how you actually discuss in results. So I will just tell you some of the important elements that can be considered while writing a discussion part. For example, the first thing that you can think about is the key findings. So when you are writing a discussion part, you always have to think about the key findings. Now, by key findings, I mean you have to explain the data. So what is the big picture overall, in your study? You just have to, write down that big picture initially. And if you think that your findings are completely different and novel because you have been through the process and other studies as well, and if you think that your study has come up with some very different kind of findings, then you have to mention that in the same section when you're writing down key findings. So actually you don't have to give these subheadings, but I have just divided it into different elements and parts, so that while writing a discussion part, you should actually be clear that what are you going to write. So first of all, you have to write down key findings, and secondly, you have to clear the context. Now by context here, we mean that okay, you have found these results. Now you have to compare those results with the previous studies, okay, and discuss how findings support or challenge the paradigm. So it's not only that you are just comparing your findings with the previous results, but you also have to show whether your findings are really supporting a certain paradigm within which you have worked, or it is challenging it, because our entire kind of empirical research is informed by a certain theory. So we have to find relationship between theory and practice, theory and the findings. So this is how you would be writing down whether your study findings, they really support the particular theoretical framework or paradigm, or is completely challenging it. That can be the second step that you can include while writing discussion part. The third thing that you can think about is strengths and limitation in discussion part. And strength and limitation in a way that you have to anticipate that readers can always question, they can always have criticism over your findings, your results. So you have to show them why your results are valid. For example, why should readers trust your study now? So give them a clue, tell them a certain process that you have gone through and you have used, specific reliable tools, and you have come up with a very rigorous process. You have gone through a rigorous process, and then you have found this and this, and then you have interpreted in the light of some studies and it's within certain theoretical framework. So this is how you would be, validate your study, and this validation of your, results and study overall, that can actually win the trust of the readers, and they can really, maybe they can start, trusting your way of doing the research. So that's very important thing. And after that, you can think about what's next. Means, okay, you have done a study, you have come up with, some results, and you have explained it in the light of studies, and also, showed your position in relation to a certain paradigm and theoretical position. But now, what's next? What can be done? So you might have, some questions in mind that you think they are still unanswered, okay, and there can be certain, future directions. So where this is where you can suggest some confirmatory studies. So this is okay, you have found, but you believe that, some other studies need to be conducted to confirm this phenomena that I have, explored, and I have come up with in these studies. So this can be further, carried out by some other researchers in different contexts rather than the same context, maybe with some changes in methodology, or maybe some changes in kind of, sample data in sample size, or maybe some other, aspects can be considered. And the next part you have to keep in mind is, so what? Okay, if you have done this study and you have found the results, so what is actually the implication of your study? Because implication is always a very important part of your research. Whatever research we do, we always try to see that what is its implication. So discuss, why the readers should care about the findings. So for example, if you are, let's say, investigating anxiety, okay, that the students face, for example, while speaking English. So you have found, you have come up with some results. Now the implication you have to tell, then, okay, if this is happening, then now we need to take some measures in order to help the students to overcome that. So implication is always, very important part of your research, and that can be discussed in the discussion part. And then finally, you have to, give a conclusion. Okay, conclusion is also given separately, by the way, but in the discussion part, you can also, just try to sum up the entire discussion part, and that can be, by restating your main finding and then give a final take-home message. But I would suggest that this part can be spared for a different section that is a strong. There's a conclusion part that I would also be, sharing one video on. So this is, how we write the discussion part and then results. So I would, just suggest that, whenever you are writing results section part, you need to read something about, maybe something from literature, to know how results are written actually, and how discussion is presented, and try to read as many articles as possible to know how, established writers especially, they try to approach these particular topics of, presenting data and results, and then explaining the data, how they are doing it. That can really be helpful to us. So it's really a bit tricky, and it needs practice, it needs reading, it needs, some basic training, and I'm sure that, with our consistent efforts, we can always improve that. So thank you so much.